All right, let's talk about space weather. Now, most of us think of space as, something way out there. But what if a storm on the sun, 93 million miles away, could quietly start messing with the electronics inside your own house? That's what we're digging into today, the surprisingly personal side of space weather.
Now, for this entire explainer, we're leaning on a super detailed technical report from the experts over at RFI Detectives, which is a part of Virtualization Options LLC. They really know their stuff. And just so you know, this is actually part 5 of a massive 10-part series they've put together. And while other parts talk about huge satellites and big industrial systems, today we're focusing on Chapter 5, the risks right here, in your home. So when you hear solar storm on the news, what do you picture? I'm guessing it's probably satellites going haywire, or maybe, a power grid getting knocked out. And you're not wrong. That's definitely a big part of it, but it is nowhere near the whole story. The reality is, space weather is a direct risk to your smart TV, to the incredibly complex systems in your car, and, maybe most importantly, to the irreplaceable data you keep at home. The threat has literally moved from outer space into our living rooms. So how in the world does this even happen, right? How does an eruption on the sun reach the gadgets plugged into your wall? Well, it turns out there are 2 main ways this threat shows up on our doorstep. Okay, this breaks it down perfectly. On one hand, you've got these things called geomagnetically induced currents, or GICs. The easiest way to think about them is that they create dirty power. They mess with the whole electrical grid, causing these weird voltage sags and surges that your electronics really don't like. Then, on the other hand, you have something totally different: single event upsets, or SEUs. This is way more personal. It's like a tiny, high-energy particle, a cosmic ray, that makes it through our atmosphere and scores a direct hit on one of your microchips, flipping a bit of data from a 1 to a 0. Just like that. Now, you'd probably assume that our newest, most powerful gadgets would be the toughest, right? But here is the crazy part, a real paradox of progress. It turns out the more advanced our tech gets, the more sensitive it becomes to these events from space. And it really comes down to this simple fact. All the things that make our electronics amazing, the super tiny circuits, the lower power usage that makes them so efficient, are the exact same things that make them more fragile. And this chart just lays it all out. See along the bottom where it says process node? That's basically just a fancy way of saying how small the stuff on the chip is. And on the side, critical charge is how much energy it takes for one of those stray particles to cause an error. And look at that curve. As the chips get smaller and more modern, going from 180 nanometers down to 3, the amount of energy needed to cause a glitch just plummets. It takes way less of a hit to knock things out of whack. Just let that number sink in for a second. A modern chip, one built on a 3-nanometer process, is about 150 times more sensitive to one of these bit flips than an older chip from the 18-nanometer days. That means your brand new smartphone is, by its very nature, way more susceptible to these kinds of errors than, say, an old pocket calculator from 20 years ago. Wild, right? Okay, so we get the why now. Newer tech is just more sensitive. So let's talk about the where. We're going to take a quick tour through a typical smart home and pinpoint which devices are really on the front lines here. First up, your smart TV or that little streaming box you use. You ever have it just freeze up or reboot for no reason at all, or get stuck on that buffering screen forever? Yeah, a single event upset could easily be the culprit. Now, these glitches are usually just annoying. They're not going to break anything. But hey, if you still use an antenna, those same solar events can mess with the ionosphere and cause all that blocky pixelation. Okay, now we're getting to the serious stuff. Your network attack storage, your NAS, the place you keep all your family photos, your important documents. The report calls out this risk specifically, and it's a big one. A silent bit flip means your data gets scrambled as it's being saved, and you get zero warning. No error message, nothing. The corrupted file just sits there, waiting. For all you tech-savvy people watching, this is a really important takeaway. If you're running a home server or a NAS, the file system you choose really matters. Systems like ZFS or BTRFS have something called data checksumming built right in. They are constantly checking your data to make sure it's okay. Your standard file systems like ext4 or NTFS, a lot of times they don't do that, which leaves your data way more vulnerable to this silent corruption. And what about electric cars? I mean, they're basically giant, powerful computers on wheels. They can be hit with GPS errors that mess up navigation, a bit flip in the battery management system could give you a wrong battery reading, or even cause problems with charging. And on top of that, your home charger itself can get hit by that dirty power from the grid we talked about earlier. All right, that was a lot of doom and gloom, I know. But here's the good news. You are not helpless. The report lays out some really practical, straightforward steps you can take to protect your digital life. Let's run through them. Number 1, good surge protectors. That's your first line of defense against dirty power. 2, use a UPS, a battery backup for your most important stuff like your computer and your NAS. It completely isolates them from what the grid is doing. 3, the 3-2-1 backup rule. This is just essential for protecting your data from corruption or anything else really. 4, check the space weather forecast. You can look up NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center, just like you check for rain. And finally, number 5, choose quality electronics. Reputable brands tend to use better designs and shielding, which can give you that little extra bit of protection. So let's just end on this one thought. We've seen how a single invisible particle can travel 93 million miles from the sun and end up altering or even erasing a memory stored on a tiny chip inside your home. This isn't science fiction, it's just physics. And really the only question left is your digital life ready for it?